Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with the Bothe family today, owners of Bothe Associates, a precision machining company in Kenosha. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm speaking to Kent on the left, Laura, then Paul, and Cathryn. Welcome.
Thank you.
I will ask Kent, what is your role in the business and what had it been?
My role currently is retired. I was there at the beginning because when I was 9 years old, my dad stopped going to his job in Milwaukee. He went down in the basement to go to work each day. And that was a big change in our family.
Okay.
And
Laura, your role in the company?
I am president of the company. My role involves a lot of work with the shop floor and customer contact, and it changed a lot over the years from when I started back in 1993.
That was full-time.
Full-time, yes.
You worked before that, though.
I did. Kept the lawn as a kid, worked in the shop running CNC machines.
And Paul?
I'm currently vice president, and I started running machines there when I was about 11 years old. And I've had all sorts of roles in the business since then, procuring materials, planning processes, overseeing business financials, and all kinds of other things that we have to do in a family business.
Okay. I'm Cathryn.
I am also retired from both the associates and previously was president, and now Laura is.
Okay, it's a third generation family business, I understand. Okay. Kent, can you tell me about the history and your starting when you were 9?
started when I was 9. I always liked to work with my dad. He was a great mechanic and a great teacher, and he allowed me to do little things that I could do. The business started in the basement of our house where we all grew up and progressed from there.
Okay, and tell me about your father and the formation of the business.
He
came from...
came from Germany as a teenager, worked in many different places, maybe not many, worked at that time Nash Kelvinator, and his last job was at a company in Milwaukee that made garage doors. He had always been doing things, and actually he was doing machine work out of our basement before 1950, but it was just 1950 it became a full-time job. And it was just really a lot of fun, but it also, I think, pretty scary especially for my mom, and you know, he's looking to support a family, 3 kids.
Out of your basement.
Yep. No, very little room for error.
And what did you make?
We were secondary operations specialists, is what the letterhead said. And that was, we did things to stuff that other people made as a primary operation.
So you made things that other companies needed to perform their stuff.
Yes, we would drill holes or cut notches or stuff like that.
Okay, and how long did he stay in the basement?
Till 1954.
And your mother at the time, what was she doing other than raising the children?
Well, she was primarily a homemaker, but she also had a lot of responsibility with doing all the paperwork, the bookwork for the business. Payroll was very small, it was just my dad. She did ordering for the supplies that were needed
Okay.
and just holding the thing together.
So in '54, you moved.
Yes,
Okay, where'd you move to?
we moved to a 600-foot rented space in a building just off Roosevelt Road on 28th Avenue. There's a faded sign on the side of it now that says Burton Klemp Company.
Okay. All right, and how long were you in that
Till
building?
1957.
57. How many employees were working at the time?
I think there were 5 besides
The
my
family?
dad and mom.
Okay. So, and this move from the basement to the Burton Kemp building, and then in '57 you moved again. Where did you go?
We went to a small building on 37th Avenue and 67th Street, just on the south side of the railroad tracks that run diagonally through the city. We rented it, was 2,800 square feet, and going out of 600 into 2,800 was, couldn't believe all the room we had.
And what kind of machinery, equipment came along as you moved from place to place?
Well, it was drill presses, a couple lathes, a punch press, and some automatic equipment that did some of this secondary work, that very specialized stuff that ran unattended.
Okay, what were the first products that your dad made?
One of the products was hex head bolts that needed to have holes drilled through the 6 hex flats for safety wires. Safety wires are still used, but they were used more at that time because they didn't have the great advances in the locking adhesives that we have today. And these holes are small, and it takes a lot of time to drill a small hole through a steel bolt. Also, he had a lot of work in the cold-headed fastener industry, and that's what these automatic machines did. They cut grooves, or they made notches, or stuff like that.
Okay, and by the time you were at the building on 28th Avenue, what were you making at that time? Have you expanded into other things by then, or still doing what you described?
Well, when we moved to the 37th Avenue building, we had a couple lathes, so we were doing turning work, but just more of it. We had a couple more people and just turning out more product.
Okay, and where did you move from there?
Pardon me?
Where did you move from there?
Well, we outgrew the 37th Avenue building and built a building on Sheridan Road. This was going from a smaller building to 10,000 square feet. Once
Okay.
again, it was unbelievable how much room we had when we moved.
Okay, and this was in 19...
73.
Okay,
But what really drove the move was we had purchased a machine, some new technology, and it had a pretty big footprint. And when we got done writing that purchase order, we came to realize that there just was no room in this building on 37th Avenue, and something would have to be done. And so my dad bought a piece of property and we built a building.
good thing it didn't show up before the building was built.
Oh, that's for sure.
Okay, so you're on South Sheridan Road with more space and room for your new machine. What was the new machine?
Well, the new machine was actually a a lathe, but it was a numerically controlled lathe, which means that instead of having an operator pulling levers and dials and manually running the machine, it was being run by a computer. And we would prepare a program of instructions telling the machine each and every move that it had to make in order to complete the workpiece. And then these instructions were punched into a 1-inch wide paper tape with 8 channels in it, and it went through a reader that had little lights underneath, and the machine executed what it was asked to do. It was like a miracle. When we saw that machine, first of all, we thought it was like magic, but secondly, when we saw the potential of doing stuff that way rather than the way we had been doing it and the way the industry had done it for the previous 125 years or more, it was revolutionary.
And what did it accomplish for your business?
Because my father was very forward-thinking, it accomplished the fact we were the first job shop in the area to have one of these things. And that opened many doors for us because these machines could do things that manual machines couldn't do. And opened a lot of doors, got a lot of new customers.
Okay. How long were you on the Sheridan Road building? How long were you there?
Once again, we filled it up. First of all, we added 6,000 more feet onto our building. And by 1993, it was apparent that in order to grow the way we wanted to, we would need more square feet. And so Kathy was instrumental in working with contractors and the state of Wisconsin, and we were planning to build an identical 16,000-foot building just to the north of the existing one. But we were unable to do so because the land that the building was to go on was declared a wetland.
Can you say a little bit more toward that problem?
Sure. When the building was built, Kent's father had a lot of great qualities, and one of them was he was very frugal. He wasn't going to have dirt put to build that building. He just dug a hole in the back, but it filled up with water, and cattails came. So now it's a wetland. And then it was discovered on the property behind the shop that there was an endangered species, a special gentian violet. So the DNR offered to let us do that, but they wanted us to sign a blank check that they would remediate that many acres somewhere. We didn't know what it was going to be. It could have been a lead mine or who knows. Well, we couldn't do that. I mean, that would have been foolish. So at that time, the Kenosha Area Business Alliance was headed up by a man named John Beekler, and he thought this was just terrible that the DNR had done this to us. He actually met with me and the DNR guy as he was saying, no. At the same time, CABA was interested in, there was so many people building things, and they wanted to help, and they wanted to do a new financial model where CABA actually owned the building, built the building, and then at the very last minute they signed it over to the company for whom it was done. But we had to do all the designing, and that was the time when Laura came full-time, and so that was really helpful that we were able to work on getting the new building in place. During that time, Kent's brother Eric had a stroke some years before and was not able to help as much, and so it was really hard. There weren't that many of us,
And had that been his role in the company?
They each did different things. Kent could maybe describe more before Eric's stroke, what did you do and he did?
Well, we had machines that we call turning machines, lathes, basically lathes. And we had machining centers which would drill and mill and tap. And Eric was overseeing the programming and running of these machining centers, and I was doing lathes. But we collaborated on any of the decisions on what we were doing with the business.
Okay.
So Kent was busy doing both things, so he couldn't possibly oversee a building particularly. And so we moved out to the original city industrial park with 38,000 square feet, much bigger and very modern. Air conditioned, although our shop on Sheridan Road was air conditioned also, which was very unusual. Most factories aren't even now
Well,
are
why
not.
did you have air conditioning in the factory?
Paul, why don't you describe, why do we need air conditioning?
Well, we deal with a lot of high precision parts, and when you deal with the coefficient of expansion of metals, sizes can actually change when you change temperatures. So if you make a part in 100 degrees and measure it in 70 degrees, it's going to shrink or grow. So it's important that you have consistent temperatures from where you make the part to where you measure the part.
Okay.
And it's also a lot nicer for the people who work there.
Okay, Kent, you had this original NC machine with the punch tape that ran through it. Is that the only machine like that that you had when your dad was shopping around?
Well, while the people from the factory were installing this machine, getting it ready to turn the keys over to us, the sales guy told us that they were introducing the next larger size machine. And my dad placed an order on the spot, sight unseen, which was, again, a pretty gutsy thing to do.
How
As
much,
turned
how
out,
much did that machine cost?
the original one was $90,000, and the larger one was $125,000.
And how did that equate to the other machinery and value?
Well, that $90,000 machine was probably worth half again as much as all the other equipment that the company owned.
So then, shortly after that one, he bought another one that was going to be even more.
Even more.
Did you have the work to accommodate that second one?
Not at first, but it came rather quickly.
Okay.
The machine never was really idle. We were very lucky.
Okay, and so now you're at the Kenosha Industrial Park, the one that's just off 52nd Street past Highway 31 or Green Bay Road. And that space there, how has now to this latest building accommodated the customers, your products, your machining, and all of that? Where are we today, Laura?
Well, we have a lot more space. We were able to put the equipment more where we wanted it, not just where we could shoehorn it in. The location was much better from a transportation standpoint, being closer to the interstate. So that was better, easier to get to us and find us. So the location's been great. And being in an industrial park as opposed to just on Sheridan Road in a semi-industrial corridor, but also then retail and housing. It was a much better location. It continues to be.
Okay. And the expansion, the growth of the company during this time, what can you tell me about that?
Well, we are probably more like where we were at the last shop in terms of the facility's pretty full of equipment now, and we definitely have had business growth, customer growth, and staffing as well. So it's been a progression over these 30 years we've been there.
What were the customers that you made parts or tooling for?
Well, at the time that our company was young, Kenosha had a lot of larger manufacturers. Dynamatic, Triclover, Mech White, help me, some of the others. And a lot of these people were looking to buy services outside of their own capacity. So we were filling those in.
And today, what are your customers today, Laura?
Our customers now, I would say they're regional, but they're also national and international. So we've definitely grown in that way. We have customers too who have maybe moved, and they're halfway across the country now, but we still do business with them. We have customers that have been with us 50 and 60 years.
And how many employees do you have today?
We're at 38 employees.
Tell me about your education background to be where you are today as president.
Well, I went to college at Marquette University, and my degree is actually in communications and history and English. So not a mechanical background, but what I had was years running machines in the shop, and lots of hands-on and learning about the business right there alongside all the other people who work there.
And your education background, you were 9 working in the basement, and then you graduated from high school and went back to the basement, pretty much.
Yep.
Okay. Paul, what's your background?
My background is that I got a liberal arts degree from New York University, so nothing that specifically helped in the manufacturing world, except that it built upon some of the experiences that I'd had growing up working in the machine shop and running machines from a young age.
So it seems like your education wasn't what got you to where you are in this company, but it's the experiences that you had working at the company with your father and your grandfather.
Absolutely. I remember being in 6th grade, coming in on Saturdays and Sunday mornings, working 5 a.m. till noon. And it was kind of interesting for a 6th grader to have that kind of responsibility, but it was also pretty cool to have that kind of job. And I really enjoyed making the parts, and the smell of cutting metal and the satisfaction from making something was really important to me. And that stuck with me from an early age.
And you would go there by yourself?
Oh, no. No, these are still pretty dangerous machines, so it was always under strict supervision. But in a family business, it was great. They gave us that trust. They allowed us to make mistakes and learn the processes and grow in the business. And that was what we had to do to take us to where we are today.
And how has safety changed at the business that you're doing, the machining and all of that?
Well, there's no children there anymore. We'll start there.
What?
There's no children there anymore.
Oh, no, I just mean the safety features
Oh, of the equipment?
of the job.
Well,
and
overall, we have safety programs in place now, too, that are different than they were decades ago.
Okay, and what kind of safety procedures did you have with your dad?
Try not to get hurt. Keep your eyes open. Yeah.
Well, the most modern safety equipment we have now is on the robotic equipment we have. They have seeing eyes that'll sense if you get too close to the equipment, it'll shut down, so it's not going to whack you.
Okay. Now, how about glasses, gloves, masks, anything?
Oh, yes, all of the above.
Yeah, hearing protection and all of those things. Steel-toed shoes.
Okay, so do you work with large pieces of heavy metals, or you work with smaller pieces to make the smaller pieces?
Yes, that's the interesting thing about our business. We make parts that I could put 500 of them in my hand, and parts big enough that we couldn't pick them up together. So it's a very wide range. That's the nature of the job shop business, contract manufacturing, is that we have size capabilities in our equipment, and our customers come to us with all different things, and every day is different. That's what makes it really interesting.
Okay. And when you were president, Kathy, what did you do compared to what Laura's doing today?
I would say I had less customer contact and more, running the business, because it was a time when we grew a lot. I mean, we didn't have, right now we have a full-time HR person. We have a full-time accounting person. Well, some of that just wasn't happening then. So.
Okay. So, when it came time to learn the job, Laura, what was it that you did? I mean, I'm walking into the building, I'm full-time, and this is what I have to do. What was it?
I mean, when I started in 1993?
Yeah.
So that's a great question. There was a period of time of finding out how I fit into what the business needed to grow, but then literally like 8 or 10 weeks into my full-time tenure is when Kent's brother Eric had his stroke. And so my job changed from a Friday to a Monday. And at that point, it was kind of trial by fire of Eric had a set of customers he had interfaced with and Kent had his, so I picked up Eric's customers and started to try and figure out how do we talk to them, what do they need to know, that kind of thing. I obviously didn't do the programming that he did, but I did that part. And that's when I started to work on systems for, say, scheduling the shop, and eventually that became a software program over time. And so that's sort of how I moved into the business.
And how about you, Paul?
Again, when I started in the business, they had to find a role and understand how I could fit in to grow the business. It started with procuring materials and developed through learning all of the machining processes to do process planning and estimating, and eventually overseeing all the quality and operations within the machine shop. So it's been a long development curve, and we're still learning every day.
So tell me about the raw materials. How many different ones, what qualities do they have to have for you to work with them?
That's a good question. Being a job shop, we don't have a specific product. We make all kinds of things for all kinds of people. So that could be just about any grade of metal or plastic. We haven't dealt much with wood in the CNC machines, but we've done all grades of plastic, all kinds of steel, stainless steel, brass, copper, bronze, and a little bit of titanium and the other weird metals. Typically, material comes to us in 12-foot bars, bar stock. But also we do parts that are made from castings and forgings, where parts are made closer to net shape, so there's less machining, less raw materials, and it's a more efficient process. So,
Okay. Do your customers tell you what kind of materials they want you to use, or do you tell them which materials are going to work best for what they want it for?
typically our customers tell us what types of materials, and typically the process begins with a customer blueprint that's going to have all the specifications of the parts, what's to be made from, what the tolerances are, heat treat, plating, sizes, dimensions, everything's on that blueprint.
Okay. So today, you do this precision machining, and what tolerances do you work with?
That's another good question. Our basic unit of measure is 1/1000th of an inch. That's 0.001 inches. If you divided an inch into 1,000 pieces, that's our basic unit of measure. To picture that in your mind, that's about 1/3 of the width of a human hair. So we operate in a very small window of what's good versus bad. So our tolerance would go down to about 1/10 of that. We have parts that are measured in 1/10,000th of an inch.
And your machinery is good enough to cut that?
It's good enough to cut that and inspect it, and if it's not, it's our job to tell our customers that we can't maintain those tolerances.
Have you ever had to tell customers that you couldn't do something they wanted to? What would be a reason why you couldn't?
I can hear my dad saying it now, but it's a lot easier to put something on paper than it is to actually machine it, and engineers can put anything on paper. You can put whatever tolerance or feature you want. When the rubber hits the road, someone's got to make that.
Okay, so when you tell them you can't do it, could it just be because I'm sorry, but we can't get the material, or I'm sorry, that can't be made in the way you drew it up? Or?
Both of those things,
Both of
especially in the last year that we can't get the material, has been more common.
So the supply chain has affected you
Oh, yeah.
a lot. Has there been any other events that have affected your business? You know, you talk about supply chains that can affect everything in terms of timing of what you can do. Any other technology? The CNC machines brought a big change in technology and how you do business. Were there any other types of technological changes or current events type things that said, well, that's not going to help us? Can you tell me about any of those?
Well, the robotics that we've recently installed in the last few months are a big technological advancement for us. With the labor market being as tight as it is, we need to find ways to run the machines with the same number of people. And so we put two robots in, and there's a learning curve to it, but we've got them going, and it's kind of miraculous to watch it work. I mean, somebody who was younger than I am came in and said, "This is like living in the future." And, you know, it really is. It's amazing. So that's one of the things.
Do you have trouble keeping employees?
You know, we have a lot of long-term employees, and I would say that in terms of keeping people, it's mostly if it's people who are very new, that might be where we see some turnover. But mostly we have people who come and stay.
How long have some of your employees worked there?
Oh, definitely in that 25, 30-year range.
Okay. And is it hard to find new people when people retire or something?
Yeah.
What is the challenge there?
That's a challenge. It's the skilled market. Maybe you want to talk about the history of employment.
I guess it's not becoming any easier to find skilled machinists, and the types of parts we do and the type of work we do isn't really the low-end machining. So we need highly skilled, highly experienced machinists, and that's a niche within a niche these days.
Okay. And now, Kent, you said you were retired. Kathy, you said you were retired. At what point did you retire from active roles in the company? When did you retire?
Just August 1st of last year. But we're still available to advise.
Do you ask them to advise a lot, or do they offer to advise?
Both.
Okay. Now, there are certain certifications and quality measures, organizations. What kind of those certifications does both the associates have?
We have what's called ISO 9001 2015 certification, which in our world means that we get audited at least once a year by an outside auditing firm to say that we're in control of our processes, which is a really good way to give peace of mind to our customers that we're a shop that's worthy of your work and capable of your work.
Okay, any other type of certifications or recognitions, should I say?
We're also certified as a woman-owned company by a national organization called WeBank,
Which means?
Women's Business Entrepreneurial National Council.
Okay. What do you see in the future for both the associates?
Well, it's exciting times.
And that's a good question. We feel that since the pandemic, there have been great trends in reshoring and bringing work back to America that we've lost over the past 3 decades. So we feel like it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for growth and a chance to cement ourselves as the premier machine shop in the area.
Okay. Do you maintain any friendships with people who work there? Do you have any events like Christmas parties, or how do you interact with your employees?
Oh, yeah, we have, actually, one of my favorite things is the holiday potluck that we do. It's great. It smells great. People are bringing wonderful treats in, and so yes, we do. We try and have events as a group. It was definitely harder the last couple of years when we've had, in the era of COVID, but we've done fun events where we did little team breakouts, that kind of just events. We did a vision summit last year where we invited all the company to see where we were taking the company in the next probably 5 to 10 years. So they had some picture of that.
And what do the employees? What hours did they work?
Well, I will say that I was very impressed with Werner at the time in the 70s. I know now everyone talks about life-work balance. He was talking about it in the 70s. It was like so unusual, right? I can't even remember when in the 70s it happened, but 4 days a week, 4 10-hour days, and you were off on Friday. There's no mandatory overtime. There could be overtime, but it was not mandatory. And so many people loved having those 3 days off. They could plan doctor appointments on Fridays, or they could be with their children or whatever. I don't think anyone else in town had that.
Okay, what other kinds of employee benefits, work rules, go back as far as your grandfather? What other things maybe?
Oh, we have certainly company paid health insurance,
Okay.
vacation that accumulates and, you know, increases as length of
Okay,
service.
Sure.
What else?
That covers the benefits.
Well, we have some employee education reimbursement and
Profit sharing?
profit share.
Profit
Yeah,
sharing.
profit sharing.
Always, Kent's father was very much for that.
Okay. And so, through all of this time, 75 years, 73 years right now,
Mhm.
what do you remember most, Kent, about what your dad told you as far as how to take care of business?
If he said it once, he said it 100 times, and that is, don't chase money, chase quality. If you're giving your customers the best possible quality, sales will follow. And he was right.
All right, thank you for talking to me today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
having
much.
us.
For having us.